Darkness knows your name. The first time he heard it, he thought it was a dream. Ethan sat up in bed, his pulse hammering against his ribs. His room was silent except for the faint hum of his ceiling fan, the digital glow of his alarm clock casting an eerie red light across the walls. 3:07 a.m. He swallowed, trying to shake the lingering feeling that someone had spoken. It was impossible, he lived alone, and his apartment was locked. Maybe the voice had been part of a dream he couldn't remember. But it hadn't felt like a dream. It had been a whisper. Right next to his ear. And it had said his name. A slow chill crept down his spine. He exhaled shakily and turned on his bedside lamp, the yellow glow pushing the shadows back. He grabbed his phone and checked the time again. Still 3:07 a.m. He was being paranoid. Sighing, he rubbed his temples and forced himself to lie back down. The room was too quiet, as if the world outside had stopped moving. He turned onto his side, pulling the blanket up to his chin. He didn't hear anything else that night. But somehow, he felt watched. The next night, he woke up again. 3:07 a.m. And this time, he knew he hadn't imagined it. The whisper came again, soft, breathy, and too close. Ethan. His whole body stiffened. His breath hitched in his throat. The voice had come from the empty side of his bed. Slowly, with every muscle tense, he turned his head toward the sound. Nothing. Just darkness. But the feeling of something unseen lingered in the air, thick and suffocating. His fingers gripped the blanket so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He reached for his phone with his other hand, shaking as he turned on the flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing. No one. His apartment door was still locked. The windows were shut. No one was there. Yet, as he sat in bed, struggling to control his ragged breathing, the air around him felt wrong. Heavy. Pressing in on him. Like someone was still watching. By the third night, he was afraid to sleep. He stayed up, scrolling mindlessly through his phone, trying to drown out his nerves with background noise. His apartment was small, just a one-bedroom unit with a tiny kitchen and a single bathroom. Nowhere for anyone to hide. But it didn't matter. The whisper would come anyway. And at exactly 3:07 a.m., it did. Ethan. This time, it sounded different. Closer. His skin prickled with goosebumps. His breath hitched. He didn't want to look. But something inside him forced him to. He turned his head slowly toward the voice. And in the dim glow of his bedside clock, he saw it. A shape. A tall, thin figure standing in the farthest corner of his room. Motionless. Watching. Waiting. Ethan's breath stopped in his throat. His heart pounded so violently he thought it would burst. The figure was barely visible in the darkness, but its outline was wrong. Unnatural. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. But it was there. Watching. Waiting. Ethan fumbled for the lamp switch, his fingers shaking so badly he nearly knocked it over. The light clicked on. And the corner was empty. But something had changed. The air felt colder. Thicker. And then, just as his heart started to slow, the whisper came again. Ethan. But this time, it was right behind him. Ethan didn't sleep after that night. The whisper still rang in his ears. That last time, it had come from directly behind him. He'd felt breath on his neck. Yet, when he'd turned around, he'd seen nothing. The air in his apartment felt wrong now, thick, oppressive, like it was pressing down on him. It was as if something unseen had settled into the space. Watching. Waiting. But the worst part? The figure in the corner. He'd seen it. He was sure of it. A shape standing in the darkness, tall and unnatural. But the moment he turned on the light, it had disappeared. Had he imagined it? No. Something was in his apartment. And it knew his name. The next day, Ethan tried to go about his routine like normal. He went to work. He avoided eye contact with his co-workers, feeling strangely disconnected from everything. Their voices sounded distant, like they were speaking from the other end of a tunnel. The hours dragged. When his shift ended, the thought of going home filled him with dread. But he had nowhere else to go. That night, he kept the lights on. He turned on the TV, let his phone play podcasts at full volume, and even left the closet door open, just to make sure nothing was inside. But none of it mattered. Because at exactly 3:07 a.m., he heard it again. Ethan. The whisper slithered through the room like a breath of cold air. Ethan froze. He kept his eyes locked on the TV, refusing to look. But then he saw it. Not in the corner this time. Not in the darkness. In the reflection of the TV screen. A tall, thin figure stood directly behind him. Its body was wrong, elongated limbs, a head tilted at an unnatural angle. And though its face was nothing but a dark void, he felt it staring. Ethan's stomach lurched. He couldn't breathe. His fingers trembled as he reached for the remote. Click. The TV screen went black. And in the glassy reflection, the figure was still there. Closer. Standing right behind his shoulder. Ethan lunged for the lamp, nearly knocking it over in his panic. The moment the light flickered on, the figure was gone. The apartment was silent again. But his skin crawled with the feeling that he was still not alone. He barely slept, keeping the lights on until dawn. The next night, Ethan made a decision. He covered every reflective surface in his apartment. The TV, unplugged and covered with a sheet. The bathroom mirror, draped with a towel. His phone, face down, shoved under a pile of clothes. No more reflections. No more glimpses of that thing. Maybe it would stop. Maybe. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't. At 3:07 a.m., the whisper came again. Ethan. This time, it was different. The whisper wasn't just a sound. It was a feeling. It crawled into his mind, wrapped around his thoughts like a hand clutching his skull. And then, something even worse happened. The whisper laughed. Not a normal laugh. A soft, breathy chuckle. Mocking. And then it spoke again. You can't hide. Ethan's stomach twisted. His pulse hammered in his ears. And then, a sound. A soft, dragging noise. Coming from the closet. No. No, no, no. His eyes locked on the door, his breath frozen in his lungs. It was open. Just an inch. But he had closed it before bed. He was sure he had. A long, slow creak filled the room as the door swung open another inch. Something was inside. Ethan's vision blurred with fear. His muscles screamed at him to move, to run. But he couldn't. He could only sit there, frozen, as the darkness inside the closet shifted. Something stepped forward. And in the dim light of his bedside lamp, he saw it. The shadow. It wasn't on the wall. It was standing in front of it. And this time, it didn't disappear. This time, it started walking toward him. Ethan didn't scream. His throat had locked up, his body paralyzed as the shadow stepped toward him from the closet. It had no face, no features, just an absence of light, a hole in reality itself. Yet he could feel it staring at him. His breath came in short, panicked bursts. His mind screamed at him to move, to run, but his body wouldn't obey. The figure took another step. The air in the room thickened, pressing against his chest, suffocating him. He wanted to reach for the lamp, to flood the room with light, but he couldn't look away. The shadow knew. It knew he was helpless. It was enjoying this. A low, distorted whisper slithered through the silence. "You see me now?" Ethan gasped. His body finally responded. With a choked cry, he lunged for the lamp and slammed the switch. Light exploded into the room. And the shadow was gone. But the closet door? Wide open. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Or the next. By the third night of no sleep, his body was shutting down. His skin felt too tight, his nerves constantly on edge. The world around him seemed off, colors too dull, sounds too distant. He hadn't gone to work. Hadn't left his apartment. The air inside felt tainted. Like the very walls were breathing. The whispering hadn't stopped. "Ethan. You can't escape. You are mine." It spoke at random times now. Not just at 3:07 a.m. When he stood in the kitchen, pouring a glass of water. "Ethan. When he showered, the steam fogging up the mirror. Watching you. When he closed his eyes for even a second. Let me in." He couldn't take it anymore. That night, he made another decision. He left every light on. Bedroom. Kitchen. Bathroom. Even the hallway outside his apartment door. No more darkness. No more shadows. He sat in bed, phone in hand, forcing himself to stay awake. His body begged for sleep, but he knew what would happen if he closed his eyes. Hours passed. His vision blurred. His head felt too heavy for his neck. His phone slipped from his fingers. His body surrendered. His eyes shut. Darkness. And then. A cold hand clamped over his mouth. Ethan's eyes snapped open, his scream muffled by something ice-cold. A face loomed over him. But it wasn't human. It was a void. A gaping, swirling emptiness where a face should be. And it was right there. Inches from his own. A sound bubbled from its throat. Laughter. Not a whisper this time. A deep, wet, unnatural chuckle. Ethan thrashed, kicking, struggling against the impossible weight pressing him into the mattress. The shadow didn't move. It only leaned closer, its featureless face brushing against his ear. And it whispered something new. "You are already asleep." Ethan's entire body seized. His lungs burned. His vision swam. He tried to scream, but the sound never left his throat. The shadow's hand pressed harder. And then. Darkness. He woke up gasping. The lights were still on. His room was empty. His sheets were soaked with sweat. A dream. It had to be a dream. But then, as he sat there, struggling to catch his breath, he saw it. His phone. It was lying face up on the nightstand. And the screen was on. Recording. With a trembling hand, Ethan picked it up and pressed play. The video started. It showed him. Asleep. Tossing, turning. And then. The closet door opened. His body turned to ice. The screen showed a tall, thin figure creeping out. Moving with unnatural slowness. It climbed onto the bed. And then, just before the recording ended, the figure turned to the camera. And smiled. The screen went black. And then. Ethan. The whisper came from inside the phone. And this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it, layered beneath the voice, was the sound of something else. Breathing. Right next to him. Ethan dropped the phone. The whisper was still there, leaking from the speaker like a breath in his ear. Ethan. Then, a crackle of static. And beneath it, something else. Not just breathing this time. A low, guttural voice. Words spoken in a language he didn't understand. Twisted. Warped. Like a recording played in reverse. The phone buzzed violently. The screen flickered, the pixels distorting, stretching, as if something was inside the device. And then, the screen went black. The whispering stopped. The silence was worse. Ethan's hands shook as he picked up the phone. His heartbeat pounded in his skull. The recording was gone. As if it had never existed. But he knew what he saw. And worse, what he felt. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. That night, he refused to sleep. He kept every light on. Blasted the TV at full volume. Even played white noise on his laptop, hoping to drown out the whispers. But at exactly 3:07 a.m., the static came back. It poured from the TV speakers, the laptop, even his phone, a horrible, high-pitched shrieking, like radio interference mixed with distant screaming. Ethan clapped his hands over his ears, wincing. And then, the voices began. They spoke in layers. Hundreds of them. Soft, whispering, overlapping. Some too quiet to understand. Others louder. Some laughing. Others weeping. But one voice rose above the rest. A voice he recognized. Ethan. The shadow. His stomach turned. His body went cold. And then, the TV screen changed. For a second, just a flicker, he saw himself. Sitting on the bed. But he wasn't alone. A dark figure loomed behind him, its face mere inches from his own. Then, static. The power cut out. Darkness swallowed the apartment. And in the pitch black, something moved. Ethan scrambled for the lamp. His fingers fumbled over the switch. Click. The bulb exploded. Glass rained down, and a wave of icy air rolled over him, thick as a presence. And then, a voice. Right next to his ear. Look behind you. Ethan froze. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. The room was too quiet. The silence pressed in, thick, suffocating. And then, the closet door creaked open. A breath of pure darkness spilled into the room. Something stepped out. Ethan wanted to run. Wanted to scream. But he did neither. Because in that moment, he realized something. He was already paralyzed. A soft dragging noise filled the silence. Like fingernails gliding along the floor. Closer. Closer. A low, inhuman chuckle filled the air. And then, the bed shifted. The weight of something climbing onto the mattress. Ethan's body screamed at him to move. But he couldn't. His limbs were numb. His breath was locked in his chest. And then, a cold hand gripped his ankle. It was wet. Rotten. The fingers dug into his skin, pulling. Ethan tried to scream. He couldn't. A whisper slid into his ear, gentle, almost loving. Let me in. Ethan's body jerked violently. And just like that, the power came back. The lights blazed to life. The weight on the bed vanished. The room was empty. Ethan sat up, gasping, his heart slamming against his ribs. His eyes darted around. The closet. Open. The floor. Empty. For a split second, he thought, maybe it was a dream. Maybe none of it was real. And then, he saw his ankle. Dark, bruised fingerprints wrapped around the skin. His stomach turned. His hands trembled as he reached for his phone. He turned on the camera. But when he flipped to the front-facing screen, his reflection wasn't alone. A tall, faceless figure stood directly behind him. And it was smiling. The screen glitched. And in the distortion, the reflection blinked. Ethan dropped the phone. And then. See you soon. Ethan didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat had locked up, his lungs refusing to work as he stared at the phone lying on the floor. The screen was dark now, but he had seen it, the reflection wasn't his anymore. There had been something else in the mirror. Something that blinked. Something that smiled. The air in the room felt wrong. Heavy. Dense. Like something was still watching. Waiting. Ethan's whole body trembled as he grabbed the phone with a shaking hand. His fingers hovered over the screen, hesitating. He didn't want to turn it back on. He didn't want to see it again. But then. Knock. 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 His heart stopped. The sound came from his bedroom door. The one he had locked. His apartment was small. The only way in or out was through the front door, and he had bolted that shut hours ago. There was no one else here. And yet. Knock. 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 Ethan's breath came in short, shallow bursts. His mind screamed at him to stay still, to be quiet. Maybe if he ignored it, it would go away. Then. The doorknob turned. Ethan bolted out of bed. He grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and held it like a weapon. His knuckles turned white around the base. The knob rattled again. Harder this time. Like someone on the other side was pushing against it. And then. Silence. A stillness so deep it made his skin crawl. The air pressed against his chest. His ears strained for any sound, a breath, a shuffle, anything. Nothing. Ethan didn't move. And then, slowly. The door unlocked. The soft, metallic click sent a bolt of ice down his spine. It had unlocked on its own. His fingers tightened around the lamp. His whole body screamed, "Don't open it." But his legs moved anyway. Step by step. His breath was shallow. His pulse pounded in his skull. He reached for the doorknob. And twisted it. The door swung open. The hallway outside was dark. Too dark. Like the light had been sucked away. The shadows at the end of the hallway were thicker than they should have been. A swirling, moving void. Ethan's stomach twisted. He felt it. Something was standing in the dark. Watching. Waiting. His fingers trembled on the doorknob. His instincts screamed at him to slam the door shut. But then. A whisper. Come closer. The voice wasn't human. It was deep. Twisted. 1,000 voices layered on top of each other. And worst of all. It was familiar. His own voice was mixed in. Ethan's entire body went cold. He took a step back. The shadows in the hallway twitched. And then. Something moved. A tall, bony figure unfolded from the darkness. Its limbs were too long, too thin. Its head tilted unnaturally. It didn't walk. It glided. Straight for him. Ethan slammed the door. Locked it. Fell back onto the bed, panting. His mind raced. His skin was clammy, ice-cold. And then. He heard it. Not from the hallway. Not from outside. From inside the room. The whisper. Right. Behind. Him. You can't hide. Ethan turned. And the lights went out. Ethan woke up on the floor. His head throbbed. His limbs felt weak. For a moment, he thought he had passed out. But then he realized, he wasn't in his bedroom anymore. He was lying on cold tile. The air smelled stale. Damp. He sat up too fast, his vision spinning. And that's when he saw it. He was in his bathroom. The mirror loomed above the sink, its surface too dark. His heart pounded. He didn't remember coming in here. He didn't remember moving at all. And then his phone buzzed. Ethan looked down. The screen was on. It had started recording again. His hands shook as he pressed play. The footage showed him lying in bed, asleep. For the first few seconds, nothing happened. Then the closet door opened. A figure stepped out. Tall. Thin. It crawled onto the bed. And then it leaned down. Whispered something into his ear. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He didn't want to know. But the volume was already up. The whisper was clear. Wake up. The screen glitched. And then the video cut to black. Ethan stared, his whole body trembling. His reflection loomed in the mirror above him. But something was wrong. The Ethan in the mirror wasn't shaking. Wasn't pale. Wasn't scared. He was smiling. And then the reflection blinked. The bathroom light flickered. Ethan's stomach dropped. The reflection raised a hand. And knocked 3 times. From inside the mirror. The knock echoed inside the bathroom. 3 slow taps. Coming from inside the mirror. Ethan's body locked up. He wanted to move. Wanted to run. But he couldn't. His reflection wasn't following his movements anymore. It just stood there, grinning. The smile stretched too wide, too unnatural. The teeth were sharp. Jagged. And then the reflection tilted its head. A voice crawled out of the glass, low and distorted. Let me in. Ethan stumbled backward. His breath came in ragged, shallow bursts. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. But then the mirror rippled. Like water. Like something was pushing against it from the other side. Ethan's stomach twisted. He needed to get out. Now. He turned to run. And the door slammed shut. The lights flickered. The air went ice cold. And then a hand reached through the mirror. It was his hand. But it wasn't. The skin was wrong. Gray. Too long. Fingers stretched and cracked at the joints. The hand pressed against the sink, pulling the rest of the thing through the glass. Ethan couldn't move. His legs felt like they had turned to stone. His lungs refused to work. The figure climbed out of the mirror, its movements jerky, unnatural. It had his face. But the eyes were black pits. And the smile. Too wide. Too sharp. The thing straightened its back. And laughed. Ethan shook violently. The laugh sounded wrong. Like static mixed with screaming. Then the thing moved. Fast. Too fast. 1 second it was by the sink. The next. It was right in front of him. Face to face. Its breath was cold. Sour. Rotten. It lifted a hand. And pressed a single, freezing finger to Ethan's forehead. A whisper slid into his ears. Time's up. The lights exploded. Ethan woke up somewhere else. The air was thick, heavy. The world distorted. He tried to move. But his limbs were paralyzed. His mouth opened to scream, but no sound came out. Then he saw it. The mirror. He was inside it. The surface rippled, reflecting a scene he couldn't control. His bedroom. And him. Standing in the center of the room. No. Not him. The thing. It turned to the mirror. Tilted its head. And smiled. It lifted a hand. And waved. Ethan tried to scream. But the mirror sealed shut. The last thing he saw was the thing walking away into his life and leaving him trapped forever. Ethan was trapped, sealed inside the mirror. He pounded against the glass, but no sound came out. His voice was gone. His reflection was no longer his own. The thing, the imposter, had stolen his life. Ethan watched in horror as it moved through his apartment, wearing his face, his body, his skin. And worst of all, no one could tell the difference. Days passed. Ethan screamed until his throat felt raw. No one heard him. The mirror was a prison, a cold, silent void. He watched helplessly as the thing took over his life. It ate his food, answered his phone, smiled at strangers, even went to work. But something was wrong. It was too perfect. The way it moved. The way it spoke. Every word, every step, too calculated. People noticed. They started pulling away, avoiding him. And then they started disappearing. Ethan watched in horror as his best friend, Mark, knocked on the door. The imposter answered, smiled, invited him inside. Ethan banged on the mirror. Don't go in. Mark didn't hear. He stepped inside. And then the door closed. Ethan waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. But Mark never came out. That night, Ethan saw something new in the mirror. A second figure. Standing just behind him. Mark's face. But his eyes were hollow. Empty. His mouth opened, and no sound came out. Just like Ethan. Another prisoner. Another soul stolen. Ethan backed away. His stomach twisted. He wasn't alone in here. The mirror was full of them. Hundreds. Thousands. All trapped. All screaming silently. And the imposter. It was still hungry. More people disappeared. Neighbors. Co-workers. A missing poster went up in the apartment lobby. Then another. And another. Ethan watched, helpless, as the imposter kept smiling. Kept living. Kept feeding. The world had no idea. No one knew the truth. No one. Except her. One night, Ethan's sister, Lily, knocked on the door. The imposter answered. Smiled. Invited her in. Ethan froze. His fist slammed against the glass. No. Lily hesitated. Something in her eyes flickered. Doubt. Fear. She stepped back. The imposter tilted its head. And then it glitched. Just for a second. Like a broken TV screen. Lily's face drained of color. She saw it. She knew. Ethan's heart pounded. He saw her lips move. Who are you? The imposter didn't answer. Just smiled. Stepped closer. Lily turned to run. The door slammed shut. Lights flickered. Ethan pounded against the mirror. Run, Lily. But the imposter was too fast. It grabbed her wrist. Pulled her close. And whispered something in her ear. Something Ethan couldn't hear. Lily's eyes rolled back. Her body went limp. And then she vanished. Ethan collapsed. His world shattered. Lily was gone. He had lost. The mirror held too many souls now. And soon there would be more. The imposter turned toward the mirror. Faced Ethan. And for the first time, spoke directly to him. You can scream all you want. It stepped closer. Its smile widened. No one will ever hear you. Ethan shook his head. Tears blurred his vision. The impostor lifted a hand. Pressed its palm against the glass. And whispered. Sleep now. The mirror went black. And Ethan's world ceased to exist. Somewhere, in the real world, a new missing poster appeared. Ethan Carter, missing. No one ever found him. And in his apartment, a mirror stood in the corner. If you listened closely, you could hear the sound of someone screaming. But no one ever heard. And no one ever would. Because Ethan was just another name. Lost to the dark. Forever.